How did we get here? How did we get to the spot today where somehow or another something like transgenderism is celebrated, where men can beat women senseless, and it's called inclusivity in sports? How did we ever get to that? Well, in 1932, Aldous Huxley published Brave New World, a novel that presents a dystopian society where the masses were controlled and exacted, not by fear and punishment, but with pleasure and distraction. To the surprise of Huxley himself, that fictional dystopian world is being realized much faster than anyone expected. These quotes by Huxley from Brave New World Revisited. He says, the society described in Brave New World, this is Huxley talking about his book Brave New World. He says, the society described there is a world state in which war has been eliminated and where the first aim of the rulers is at all costs to keep the subjects from making trouble. This they achieve by, among other methods, legalizing a degree of sexual freedom made possible by the abolition of family that practically guarantees the Brave New Worlders against any form of destructive or creative emotional tension. In 1984, the lust for power is satisfied by inflicting pain. In Brave New World, by inflicting a hardly less humiliating pleasure. The future dictator's subjects will be painlessly regimented by a corps of highly trained social engineers. The challenge of social engineering in our time, writes an enthusiastic advocate of this new science, is like the challenge of technical engineering 50 years ago. If the first half of the 20th century was the era of technical engineers, the second half may well be the era of social engineers. And the 21st century, I suppose, will be the era of world controllers, said Huxley. And he was on the money. It will be the era of world controllers. The scientific caste system, neo-feudalism, and Brave New World. So that's what we're looking at today. How did we get here? How did we get to the point where these kind of ideologies are just promoted and pushed to the edges and closer and closer and closer? We keep pushing society closer to obliteration. As history has graphically demonstrated, the various religious crusades to immanentize the eschaton, or to realize heaven on earth as a creation of mankind, are deadly serious. This truth is tangibly evidenced by the atrocities committed by the socio-political utopians of secular Gnosticism. Both Auschwitz and the Soviet Gulag are products of the same jihad. The secular theocracies that have waged this jihad have consistently been scientific dictatorships, edified by Charles Darwin and his theory. Inevitably, the Gnostic myth of Darwinism guides its adherents to the same conclusion. Evolution requires man's assistance. Through societal interventions, socio-political utopians believe that humanity can facilitate its own evolutionary development and eventually immanentize the eschaton, can bring heaven to earth, can just create it right here. Freemason and Darwinian apologist, known as Darwin's bulldog himself, another Huxley, yes, Thomas Henry Huxley wrote, social progress means checking of the cosmic process at every step and the substitution for it of another, which may be called the ethical processes, the end of which is not the survival of those who happen to be the fittest in respect of the whole of the conditions which exist, but survival of those who are ethically the best. That is evolution. That is evolutionary naturalism. And I pray that the Lord would allow for some skeptics to see this video, to drop in, to see the title and the thumbnail and drop in here and ready to debunk this crazy Christian, because you're going to hear an argument tonight that you probably haven't heard. If you can walk away from this presentation, I'm talking to you, atheist or just New Age skeptic or whatever you might be, someone who thinks that Christ in the way, the truth, and the life, the only way to God, thinks that's just some made-up doctrine from the past, some anachronistic mumbo-jumbo. Go ahead. Challenge yourself to listen to this whole argument. For example, here we are in the 21st century with everything we need to live, pretty near a utopia, right? But no, we are more at odds than ever. How did we get there? What is, well, let's just take the temperature, for example, of what it looks like in the world around us now. We're disenchanted. As Eric Davis was writing there, from a different perspective, to be sure, but we're disenchanted. Nobody really believes in the transcendent authority anymore. It's my authority. It's what I need. It's what I want. How did disenchantment arise? Many causes can be cited, perhaps. Renaissance humanism, scientific revolution, the rise of the police state, the Protestant Reformation. All of these are right. This is Charles Taylor. Charles Taylor, Canadian philosopher, sociologist. He says that the root cause comes earlier in the medieval period, and the rage for order that expressed itself in the desire and attempt to close the gap between the church leadership and the commoner in terms of piety and religious practice. Hans Boersma speaks of the medieval revolt of nature that set the stage for disenchantment. These precursors to disenchantment include, boy, that's a tough word, the juridicizing of the church under Pope Gregory, the rediscovery of Aristotelian philosophy and in the 12th and 13th century, and the increasing separation of the authority of Scripture and the church in the 14th and 15th centuries. And in the 16th century, controversy over the separation of nature and the supernatural. And so we get to today, where physicist Sean Carroll, astrophysicist, writes in his book. He says this is one of the experts out there. This is one of those who will most certainly an evolutionist. He says categories such as male and female are human inventions, stories we tell because it helps us make sense of our world. Male and female. They're just made up. And so you see, this is the authority level. This, Sean Carroll, he's in rarefied air. He's up there in the authority class. He says the basic stuff of reality is quantum wave function. It's particles and forces. Whatever the fundamental stuff turns out to be, everything else is an overlay, right? Male and female. Just human inventions, stories we tell ourselves because it helps us make sense of our world. Matter and motion. Matter and empirically discoverable motion. And so, from this thinking, we now live in something very close to, or maybe it's already there, a technocracy, a system of governance where experts in various fields, science, engineering, economics, they're the ones in charge of decision making. Right? The church, that's superstition. Instead of politicians or elected representatives, we have experts now. The idea that is that these experts who possess the technical knowledge and expertise required to address complex issues would be better equipped to make those decisions. Right? The ones, that's in the best interest of society. It's for your good. That is stakeholderism. Technocracy emerged as a political movement in the early 20th century during a time of rapid technological development, and it died away. But the term needs to be brought back out. Those proponents back then believed that traditional public political institutions were not equipped to handle the challenges of a modern industrialized society, and that a more rational scientific approach was necessary to manage the complexities of the modern world. But in practice, technocracy has been implemented in various ways since then. And we see it today. Experts being appointed to advisory positions within government, unelected people. The World Health Organization is a perfect example of technocracy and unelected experts having control over governments even. The Fourth Industrial Revolution promotes and implements rapid change to technology, industries, and social patterns and in processes by increasing interconnectivity. The Fourth Industrial Revolution will occur at the level of the human being, where surveillance goes under the skin, Yuval Harari said. This term was made popular by the World Economic Forum, the Fourth Industrial Revolution. That was Klaus Schwab. A part of the phase of industrial change is the joining of technologies like artificial intelligence, gene editing, to advanced robotics, to blur the lines between the physical, digital, and biological worlds. This is where many are fearing that the lust for transhumanism might be expressed. And what I suggest to you tonight is that evolutionary naturalism, the logical conclusion, is transhumanism. Fundamental shifts are taking place in how the global production and supply network operates. The aim is automation of everything. Probably more relevant and most concerning, the Fourth Industrial Revolution concepts also represent a social, political, and economic shift to an era of embedded connectivity distinguished by the omniuse and commonness of technology. You'll own nothing and be happy, right? Let's expand that out. You'll have no privacy, and you'll deal with it. All this changes the way we experience and know the world around us. It's to initiate the world into an augmented social reality, a truly hyper-real world where anything is possible, almost. There's a fatal flaw in this theory of evolution. A man's desire to be autonomous, to be his own God. Someone out there might say, and again, I pray that the Lord will bring you by here, skeptic, atheists. I want to talk to you, care about you. We love you. We don't want to see you destroyed. But there's a fatal flaw in your worldview. This theory of evolution, man's desire to be autonomous. Right? The atheist is his own God. He wants to be. One might say, how could that possibly be a deadly notion? I just want to be responsible for myself. That's a good thing. Libertarianism, right? Well, after we do our analysis of this article here, I want to come back and discuss this. Why the separation of theology from science and the search for a unified body of truth apart from Christ is deadly. In fact, science and theology have departed. They've parted ways back in the Enlightenment. But make no mistake about it, my friends. Today, science has become a religion. Scientism. And here's the point. Here's the underlying theme for tonight's show. Evolutionary naturalism has caused more suffering than any other doctrine, religion, or ideology in history. It's a bold statement, but I will show you how that's true tonight, so stay tuned. For example, the WHO, the WEF, the media, the government, academic institutions worldwide, hospital networks, just about everywhere you look, there are all these parts, these gears in a global machine that form a global scientific dictatorship right now, that exists now. And it is truly a one-world religion. And its core dogma is Darwinism, evolutionary naturalism, or the theory of evolution by natural selection, the satanic spirit behind it. Can be seen everywhere you look today. From vaccine mandates to abortion as a fundamental right to the 2020 lockdowns of citizens and the shutdown of churches and the arrest of pastors. All of these things are a result of evolutionary naturalism. A mixed up thinking. Lost our way. So what are we talking about here? What are we actually talking about? What is this theory? And how can we show it to be bankrupt? Not only bankrupt, but deadly.